The year is 2050. The world didn't end in fire or ice. It drowned in data. They say memories are the only things we truly own. But in New Avalon, memories are just another currency.
My name is Elias. I'm a memory weaver.
I don't just extract what you've seen, I extract how it felt. The city never sleeps, mostly because the neon glare cuts right through the smog, keeping everyone wired and anxious. Last night, a client walked into my office. He didn't want to sell a memory. He wanted to erase one. He was terrified. Trembling hands, sweat on his brow. He handed me a glass vial glowing with a faint pulse. "It's a contagion," he whispered. "A memory that isn't mine, and it's spreading through the lower districts like wildfire." Before I could ask him who planted it, the window shattered. A flash of blinding light, then absolute silence. When I opened my eyes, the client was gone. Only the glowing vial remained, pulsing like a mechanical heart. I should have turned it over to the enforcers. I should have walked away. But curiosity is a fatal flaw. I hooked the vial into my rig. The extraction needle hummed, pulling the glowing essence into the viewing chamber. The moment the memory interfaced with my screen, the temperature in the room plummeted. Frost crept across the monitors. It wasn't a memory of the past. It was a projection of tomorrow. The city, completely submerged in dark water. I saw the great spire of the central bank collapsing into the tide. I saw millions panicking in the streets. And in the center of the destruction, a single figure stood watching it all. Someone wearing a silver mask. I snapped the connection, gasping for air. The projection felt too real. If this wasn't a hallucination, it meant someone had built a temporal bridge. Someone was warning us, or threatening us. I packed my gear. The heavy trench coat felt like armor against the chill that had settled in my bones. I stepped out into the rain-slicked streets. The neon signs bled into the puddles, painting the asphalt in electric blood. I needed to find the man who brought me the vial. The lower districts are a maze of rusted metal and forgotten dreams. The air down here always smells like ozone and decay. I asked around the black market clinics. The Ripper docs hadn't seen my client, but they'd seen the sickness he mentioned. Echo madness, one doctor called it. People waking up screaming about drowning, their lungs burning for air that isn't there. The contagion was spreading fast. It wasn't airborne. It was being transmitted through the neural net relays. A digital virus. I tracked the local network spikes back to a derelict server farm situated on the very edge of the quarantine zone. The perimeter was heavily guarded. Private security, not city enforcers. Someone was paying top credit to keep this place hidden. I slipped past the patrols, keeping to the shadows. Inside, the massive server racks were humming, bathed in a sickening, pulsating blue light. It perfectly matched the glow of the vial. I patched my datapad into an open terminal. Lines of encrypted code scrolled rapidly, moving faster than the human eye could track. I recognized the core architecture. It belonged to Nexus Corp, the massive company that built the city's atmospheric shielding. Why would the SHIELD engineers be broadcasting a digital virus of mass destruction directly into the minds of the lower class? Suddenly, the terminal locked out. A bright red warning flared on the screen. Intrusion detected. I had triggered a silent alarm. Heavy footsteps echoed down the metallic corridor, automatic weapons being chambered. I had less than 30 seconds to move. I ripped the datapad from the console, barely catching a glimpse of the final decoded file name, Project Leviathan. I ducked behind a massive cooling tower, just as a squad of corporate mercenaries swept into the server room, rifles raised. They moved with terrifying precision. No shouting, just silent, tactical hand signals. These weren't street thugs, they were absolute professionals. I pulled a heavy EMP grenade from my coat pocket. It was old enforcer tech, but sometimes analog is the best counter. I tossed the charge into the center of the room. The blast was completely silent, but the kinetic effect was immediate. The blue lights died. The servers groaned into silence. The mercenaries' advanced optical visors sparked and went totally dark, blinding them. I used the sudden confusion to sprint toward the main exhaust shaft. I hauled myself up the rusted ladder, my lungs burning. I emerged on the rooftop, gasping for the smog-choked air. The city stretched out below me, completely ignorant of its impending doom. I needed a secure safe house. somewhere entirely off the grid where I could analyze the data I stole without being tracked. There was only one person left in this city I could trust. An old partner from my enforcer days, long before the weaving. Sarah ran a hidden speakeasy deep beneath the old subway tunnels. If she hadn't killed me yet, she might just help me. The journey through the Undercity was treacherous. Mutated scavengers lurked in the flickering, damp shadows of the abandoned maintenance tunnels. I finally reached the heavy steel door of her bar. I knocked the old enforcer code. 2 sharp taps, 1 long pause. The metal viewing slit slid open. A pair of sharp, calculating eyes stared back at me. Sarah didn't look entirely surprised. "You look like absolute hell, Elias," she muttered, slowly unbolting the heavy door. "And you brought trouble right to my doorstep." The underground bar was mostly empty, save for a few regulars. A slow jazz tune played softly from a broken, neon-lit jukebox. I threw the stolen data pad onto the polished wood bar. "I need your decrypt rig, Sarah. If I don't crack this, New Avalon drowns." Sarah poured 2 glasses of synthetic whiskey. She didn't ask questions. She just plugged the data pad into her heavy mainframe. "Project Leviathan," she read aloud, her expression tightening. "Elias, this isn't just a file. It's an automated demolition protocol. The atmospheric shields weren't failing. Megacorp was planning to intentionally lower them during the upcoming massive lunar high tide." "Why?" I asked, staring at the blueprints flashing on the screen. "Why drown half the city to save the upper tiers?" "Real estate," Sarah said coldly. "The lower levels are overpopulated. Wash them away, and Nexus gets to rebuild from scratch." The glowing vial I carried wasn't a warning from a stranger. It was a whistleblower's stolen memory, leaking the corporate truth. The terrified man in my office must have been a Nexus engineer. The silver-masked figure in the memory was the CEO. "When is the tide?" I asked, my heart pounding against my ribs. "When do they drop the atmospheric pressure shields?" Sarah tapped the glass screen. "Tonight, in exactly 2 hours. The automated sequence is already locked into the central grid. 2 hours to stop a flood that would kill millions." My heavy coat felt suddenly suffocating. I needed a heavy weapon. Sarah walked to the back wall and pulled down a rusted metal grate, revealing a cache of heavy, illegal ordnance. "Take what you need," she said, tossing me a high-capacity plasma rifle. "But if you go in there, you're dead." I loaded the rifle, the familiar weight of the weapon grounding me. "Better dead than drowning in the dark," I replied. To stop Project Leviathan, I had to physically breach the Central Spire's main control room and destroy the automated server. The spire was a towering needle of glass and steel piercing the toxic clouds. It was the most fortified building alive. I took a stolen maintenance skiff, flying low below the city's automated radar network, rain lashing heavily against the windshield. The sky above the city was already churning, an angry purple storm brewing as the lunar gravity began to pull heavily. I docked the skiff on a maintenance gantry near the 80th floor. The wind up here was brutal, tearing at my coat. I used a thermal torch to cut through the reinforced glass. The alarm blared instantly, bathing the corridor in red light. Nexus corporate guards flooded the hallway. I didn't hesitate. I raised the plasma rifle and laid down a heavy suppression fire. Blue bolts of energy scorched the pristine white walls. The air filled with the sharp, bitter smell of melted synthetic armor. I pushed forward, moving with the desperate speed of a man who knows millions of lives are ticking away behind him. I breached the heavy doors of the main control room. The chamber was massive, dominated by a glowing holographic city map. Standing beside the main console was the figure from the memory. The CEO, his face hidden behind that gleaming silver mask. "You're too late, Weaver," his voice echoed, artificially distorted. "The sequence is locked. The lower city is finally being cleansed today." I looked at the countdown timer, hovering above the console. 3 minutes until the atmospheric shields completely dropped into the ocean. "I'm not here to argue," I said, raising my rifle directly at the massive glass cooling pipes running above the mainframe. "If you destroy that, the backlash will vaporize this entire room," he screamed, stepping back from the glowing control terminal. "I know," I whispered, my tired eyes locking onto the target. My grip on the heavy plasma rifle was completely steady. I squeezed the trigger. A blinding beam of pure blue energy ripped through the air, shattering the massive coolant pipes above. Supercooled liquid nitrogen sprayed everywhere, freezing the primary server banks instantly. The countdown clock flickered wildly, then died completely. The blast knocked me off my feet. Shrapnel tore through the room, shattering the silver mask of the corporate CEO. He fell, clutching his face, as the automated demolition protocols were wiped entirely from the frozen, dead central grid network. The spire groaned as emergency backup systems tried to compensate. Red warning lights bathed the freezing room in a harsh glow. I dragged myself up. My coat was shredded, my body aching, but the holographic map showed the city's shields holding firm. I left the CEO shivering on the floor. The enforcers would find him soon enough. The truth was already leaking out. I made it back to the maintenance skiff just as the massive lunar high tide slammed against the atmospheric barriers. A colossal wall of black water crashed against the invisible energy shield, sending ripples of bright blue light across the dark sky. The shield groaned under the immense pressure, but it held. Millions of tons of ocean water were kept safely at bay. I slumped back into the pilot seat, letting the skiff drift down toward the glowing neon maze of the lower districts. By morning, the storm had passed. The news feeds were going crazy. The data leak had exposed Project Leviathan to everyone.
Just keep walking.
Nexus Corp was completely dismantled in hours. Warrants were issued, and the corporate elites were dragged from their pristine glass towers. The lower levels were celebrating. Music echoed through the rusted canyons, a sound of genuine joy replacing the constant, grinding anxiety. I walked back to my office. The shattered window was a stark reminder of how close we had come to absolute destruction. The glowing vial sat on my desk, finally dimming. The memory inside had served its purpose. The message had been delivered. I picked up the glass tube, feeling the cold surface. Some memories are burdens, but this one had been a true lifeline. Sarah sent me a secure message. Just 2 words. Good job. Coming from her, that was practically a medal of highest honor. The city of New Avalon was far from perfect. It was still dirty, still dangerous, and still running on borrowed time. But today, nobody drowned. Today, the people at the bottom proved they couldn't just be washed away by the wealthy elite. I took off the heavy trench coat, letting it fall onto the battered leather sofa. My tired eyes finally felt incredibly heavy. I looked out over the skyline. The smog was lifting, just a little, letting a few rays of actual sunlight pierce through. It hit the wet pavement, turning the gritty streets into ribbons of gold. A rare moment of absolute peace in total chaos. I am Elias, a memory weaver. I used to extract the past, trying to make sense of all the broken, scattered pieces. But maybe the past isn't what matters. Maybe it's what we choose to do with the future that truly defines us all. The neon signs flickered off as day broke. The city breathed, a deep, collective breath of survival and quiet, stubborn defiance. I poured a bitter coffee, watching the flying traffic resume its chaotic dance, the rhythm of life refusing to ever quit. The heavy weight on my chest was gone. The contagion of fear had been cured by a single, desperate act of truth. I locked the vial away in my secure vault, a reminder that even in the darkest shadows, a small light truly matters. I finally closed my eyes. The first real sleep I've had in what feels like an absolute lifetime was waiting for me. What old memories are you holding on to that you need to let go of? What truth is waiting in your own shadows? If you enjoyed this journey through New Avalon, share this story. Let the echoes of truth reach far beyond these digital walls.